Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today's topic is the osteology of the occipital bone. So still now we have covered the normas. So another way to study the skull bone is to study the individual cranial bones. So in this class we will start the osteology of the occipital bone. So this is the occipital bone. So those who have not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe now. Keep watching the videos. Now we will see about the occipital bone in detail. So as you all know, occipital bone belongs to the neurocranium and type of bone is flat bone. We will isolate this occipital bone. So this is the occipital bone isolated. It is a curved plate of bone, concave internally. So this is the concave internally, somewhat trapezoid in outline, occupies the posterior part of the vault and base of the cranial cavity. So it forms vault and base also. The bone presents in the median plane, the foramen magnum, which divides the bone into four parts. So what are the parts of the bone now we will see. So from this foramen magnum divides this bone into four parts. Squamous part, that is like expanded plate above the foramen magnum, which is curving backward and upward. A basilar part projecting forward, and so in front of the foramen magnum is the basilar part, and a pair of condylar parts lateral to the foramen. So now you can understand the four parts. Squamous part is above the foramen magnum, above and behind. In front is basilar part, on each side of foramen magnum is the condylar part. How to keep this occipital bone in anatomical position? Keeping the foramen magnum in horizontal plane, the basilar part is directed upward and forward. So that's the way to keep the occipital bone in the anatomical position. Now we will see about the parts in detail. First we will start with the squamous part. Squamous part presents internal surface, external surface, a pair of supralateral or lambdoid borders, a pair of infralateral or mastoid borders. So these are the infralateral or the mastoid borders, and three angles, superior angle and two lateral angles. So superior angle, and these are the two lateral angles. Now we will see about the external surface in detail. It is convex, presents a median elevation called external occipital protuberance. So the middle elevation is the external occipital protuberance, about midway between the superior angle and the foramen magnum. So you should see midway between the two superior angle and the foramen magnum, that is the external occipital protuberance. Most prominent point of the protuberance is known as the inion. The superior nuchal lines arch bilaterally with the upward convexity from the protuberance to the outer surface of the mastoid part of the temporal bone. So that is, they are the superior nuchal lines. Investing layer of deep cervical fascia is attached to this superior nuchal line. So these are the superior nuchal lines from the external occipital protuberance. Investing layer is attached to the entire extent of superior nuchal line. Medial part gives origin to the trapezius muscle, and lateral part, so lateral part of superior nuchal line, gives origin to the posterior fibers of sternocleidomastoid, and beneath it splenius capitis. The superior nuchal lines form the boundary between the scalp and the neck and divides the squamous part of the bone into the upper planum occipital. So this is upper planum occipital and lower planum nuchal. So the above part is coming under the above the superior nuchal line, up to this is the forming the scalp. Then below the part is related to the neck. A pair of highest nuchal lines, or using another nuchal lines, arch laterally from the external occipital protuberance. The highest lines, they are above the superior nuchal lines. The highest lines give attachment medially to the gallia aponeurotica and laterally to the occipital belly of occipitofrontalis. Area above this highest nuchal line is smooth and it is covered by occipitofrontalis on each side and gallia aponeurotica in between them. So we have seen the attachments of the superior nuchal line and highest nuchal line on the external surface. Now we will continue with the remaining part of the external surface. The squamous part is, now we will continue with the external surface of the superior nuchal line. A median ridge known as external occipital crest extends downward from the inion to the foramen magnum. So this is the external occipital crest running from the inion to the foramen magnum. It gives upper attachment to the ligamentum nuchae. So ligamentum nuchae is the ligament connecting the spines of the cervical vertebra. So that is attached to this external occipital crest. The inferior nuchal lines, so they are the inferior nuchal lines, curve bilaterally from the midpoint of the external occipital crest. The area between superior and inferior nuchal lines provides on each side to the semispinalis capitis medially and obliquus capitis superior laterally. The area between the inferior nuchal lines and posterior margin of foramen magnum gives origin to two rectus muscle, rectus capitis posterior minor medially and rectus capitis posterior major laterally. The posterior margin of foramen magnum gives attachment to the posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. So we have covered the external surface of the squamous part of occipital bone in detail. Now we will see the internal surface of squamous part of occipital bone. Close to the center of the inner surface, there is another elevation called internal occipital protuberance. A cruciate arrangement of lines radiate from this elevation. Are you seeing four lines in the shape of the cruciate, the appearance of the cross? A sagittal sulcus extends up to the superior angle. So it is in the superior angle of internal surface, sagittal sulcus. It lodges the superior sagittal sinus. And the margins of the sulcus give attachment to the, so this is the sagittal sulcus. You can see in the upper part close to the superior angles, that is giving attachment to the falx cerebri. So that is sagittal sulcus. On each side of the internal occipital crest, the transverse sulci extending, that is called transverse sulcus, they lodge the transverse sinuses. So and the margins of this sulci give attachment to the tentorium cerebelli. So now you can see from the internal occipital protuberance, internal occipital crest, from sagittally descending from the protuberance, this will give attachment to the falx cerebelli. So that will lodge as the occipital sinus. Close to the posterior margin of foramen magnum. So now you can see the posterior margin of foramen magnum. Close to the posterior margin of foramen magnum, the internal crest separates it to form a triangular depression. So this depression is called Vermian fossa, which lodges the inferior vermis of cerebellum. The confluence of venous sinuses is located at the internal occipital protuberance. So now you can understand, above is sagittal superior sagittal sinus, on each side is transverse sinus, below is occipital sinus. So they meet at the Confluence of sinus, that is the relation of the internal occipital protuberance. Where superior sagittal sinus is continuous with the right transverse sinus and the straight sinus is continuous with the left transverse sinus. So this word confluence of sinus, venous sinuses, or the torcula hierophili, this word was suggested by Lee Gross Clark. So he suggested that in right-handed individual, the superior sagittal sinus is continuous with the right transverse sinus, and in left-handed persons, the left transverse sinus, and in ambidextrous individual with both transverse sinus. But this attachment is now lacking evidence, so he suggested like this. The squamous part is divided by the cruciate lines into 4 fossae. Upper 2 triangular fossae, are you seeing the upper 2 triangular fossae for the occipital lobes of the cerebral hemispheres, and the lower 2 quadrilateral fossa. So the lower 2 quadrilateral fossa, so these are the lower 2 quadrilateral fossa for the accommodation of the cerebellar hemispheres. So we have completed this external surface of squamous part, internal surface of squamous part of occipital bone. Now we will see the borders, supralateral borders. So these are the supralateral borders. Now we will see these are the supralateral borders. Each border is serrated and articulates with the posterior border of parietal bone and forms the half of the lambdoid suture. So now you can see it is serrated. Now the infralateral borders. So this is the infralateral border or the mastoid border. Each border extends from the lateral angle to the jugular process. So that is extending from lateral angle to the jugular process and is serrated for the articulation with the posterior border of mastoid part of corresponding temporal bone. Now we will see the angle. So this is the angle, superior angle. Superior angle is the meeting point of the sagittal and lambdoid suture and is known as lambda, where the occipital bone meets with the both parietal bones. Usually the posterior fontanelle is located in this lambda in the fetal skull. Now we will see the lateral angle. So this is the lateral angle. Lateral angle is the meeting point of the occipital, parietal and mastoid part of temporal bones and is known as asterion. So you should now remember so many ion we have learnt. Nasion, pterion, inion. Now this is asterion. So this is asterion, where usually posterolateral fontanelle is present in the fetal skull. I think you should know what is fontanelle. Fontanelle is till this bones ossify, the cranial vault bones ossify and meet in the sutures, a gap is left in the front and the back and also on the sides. So that gap will be felt in as fontanelle, that in the fetal skull, till they fuse completely to form the sutures. Now we will move on to the next part of the occipital bone. So this is the projecting part from in front from the foramen magnum, that is the basilar part or basia occiput. So you are seeing now this basia occiput part, it is extending in front from the foramen magnum. It extends forward and upward from the anterior margin of foramen magnum up to the body of sphenoid bone. Basilar part presents 3 surfaces: anterior, superior and inferior, and 2 lateral borders. So these are the surfaces of basilar part. So now you have to keep this in the anatomical position, then you can understand anterior, superior and inferior. So like this it will be present in this articulate in the anatomical position. So this surface is the inferior surface and this surface is the superior surface, The one present near the foramen magnum will be called as anterior surface. So this is the anterior surface, this part which articulates with the sphenoid bone. It is quadrilateral, rough, and articulates by a plate of hyaline cartilage with the posterior surface of body of sphenoid bone, forming a primary cartilaginous joint. Synchondrosis, which is replaced by bone synostosis, usually after 25 years. So this is the anterior surface. Now inferior surface. So this is the inferior surface. Yes, now we are seeing the inferior surface. It faces downward and forward. It presents a pharyngeal tubercle. Yes, are you seeing in the median plane about 1 centimeter in front of foramen magnum, that is the pharyngeal tubercle. It gives attachment to the upper end of fibrous raphe of the pharynx, where the constrictor muscles of the pharynx are inserted. Depression on each side of the tubercle receives the insertion of, on each side of the pharyngeal tubercle, longus capitis. Close to the anterior end of occipital condyles. So now you see close to the condyles. Condyles are marked as white color. So they are the condyles. Close to that you see the inferior surface provides insertion to the rectus capitis anterior in the depressed area. Are you seeing the depressed area? So that is the in front of condyles. Yes, this is the depression. So that gives attachment to the rectus capitis anterior. Anterior margin of foramen magnum gives attachment to the anterior atlanto-occipital membrane, extending bilaterally from the pharyngeal tubercle. So now you see the pharyngeal tubercle, and in front of longus capitis, the inferior surface gives attachments to the prevertebral, buccopharyngeal and pharyngobasilar fascia from behind forwards. So this is about the inferior surface of the basilar part of occipital bone. Now we will see the superior surface. So this is in front of foramen magnum, that is the superior surface. It forms a shallow gutter which slopes downward and backward from the basis sphenoid to the foramen magnum. This surface supports the pons and the upper part of medulla oblongata, separated by the basilar artery and its branches, and also the basilar plexus of vein. Close to the anterior margin of foramen magnum, the superior surface gives attachment to the membrana tectoria, upper band of cruciate ligament and apical ligament. So we have completed the three surfaces of the basilar part of occipital bone. So this is the anterior surface, and this is the superior surface, and this is the inferior surface. We have learnt in detail about the borders of occipital bone. So these are the borders of occipital bone. Each border articulates with the medial part of posterior border of petrous part of temporal bone by sutural ligament. A groove along the upper surface of the line of articulation lodges the inferior petrosal sinus, which is the first tributary of the internal jugular vein. Now we will see the condylar parts. On each side of foramen magnum, you are seeing the condylar parts. Each is situated by the side of foramen magnum, and it presents condylar part proper and jugular process. So condylar part proper we will see. Yes, on each side of foramen magnum, that part is the condylar part. On projecting on each side is the jugular process. Now we will see the condylar part proper. So now this condylar part proper has two surfaces, superior surface and inferior surface. So what we are now seeing is the condylar part superior surface. Superior surface of the condylar part presents a jugular tubercle which bridges over the hypoglossal canal. So you can see this is the jugular tubercle. on each side of foramen magnum, that is just above the hypoglossal canal. Yes, this is the hypoglossal canal. So that is just above the hypoglossal canal, you are seeing the jugular tubercle. Posterior part of the tubercle is marked by faint oblique grooves for the passages of glossopharyngeal, vagus and accessory nerves, which pass through the intermediate compartment of the jugular foramen. Now we will see the condylar part, inferior surface. So on each side of the foramen magnum, you see the condylar part, inferior surface is presenting an obliquely placed convex articular surface that is called occipital condyle. So the student should note condylar part is giving the occipital condyle. Otherwise, occipital condyle is a part of condylar part, which occupies the anterior half of outer margin of foramen magnum. So white color is the occipital condyles. The condyle converges in front to the undersurface of the basio-occiput. The articular surface, you can observe, it is oval or reniform in outline, faces downward and laterally, and articulates with a, so what bone it will articulate? With the superior articular facet of the lateral mass of the atlas. So these condyles form the synovial atlanto-occipital joint with the atlas. The medial margin of the condyle, you see, the medial margin of the condyle presents a tubercle which projects into the side of the foramen magnum for the attachment of the alar ligaments. The hypoglossal canal that is the hypoglossal canal, lies above the articular condyle at its junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. This canal transmits the hypoglossal nerve, meningeal branch of ascending pharyngeal artery, and sometimes emissary vein. Just behind the condyle, just behind the condyle you can see condylar fossa for accommodation of the upturned posterior margin of superior articular facet of the atlas during full extension of the head at the atlanto-occipital joint. So you are seeing the condylar fossa. Sometimes posterior condylar canal, here it is given in this posterior condylar canal in the condylar fossa, affects the floor of the condylar fossa on one or both sides. This canal transmits the emissary vein connecting the sigmoid sinus with the suboccipital venous plexus. So now we have covered the condylar part proper. This is the occipital condyle on the inferior surface, condylar part proper on the superior surface. Now we will see the jugular process. Each process projects laterally as a quadrilateral plate from the posterior half of the occipital condyle. So you are seeing this is the quadrilateral plate from the posterior half of occipital condyle and presents anterior margin. So are you seeing this is the, so this is the anterior margin and this is the lateral margin, and it presents upper surface and lower surface. So that is about the jugular process. Anterior margin. So this anterior margin of condylar part presents a concave free jugular notch which forms posterior boundary of jugular foramen. So this is the posterior boundary of jugular foramen. The lateral margin bears a articular facet. So this is the lateral margin of the jugular process, which joins with the corresponding jugular area on the undersurface of petrous temporal bone by a plate of cartilage. The lower surface of jugular process, yes, this is the lower surface of jugular process, is rough, receives insertion of the rectus capitis lateralis. The upper surface of jugular process, yes, this is the upper surface of the jugular process, is deeply grooved for the terminal part of the sigmoid sinus. So that is about the condylar parts. We have seen condylar parts in detail about condylar part proper and jugular process. We will brief this foramen magnum. Foramen magnum is a large oval aperture of the occipital bone, communicates the posterior cranial fossa with the vertebral canal. The middle margin and point of the anterior margin of foramen is known as basion. So now this is the anterior margin, middle point is called basion. Now we will see the foramen magnum in another video, complete details as a separate topic. So this completes the parts of the occipital bone which we have learnt in very detail. These details will be very much useful for the medical students, dental students, and also for the PG students. What are the parts we have learnt in detail are the squamous part, condylar part. So these are the condylar part and these are the basilar part. Morphologically, if you see, the occipital bone is formed by the fusion of 3 or 4 precervical vertebrae. The basi occiput represents the fused body. So this represents the body of the precervical vertebrae. Ex-occiput, that is the jugular processes, represents the fused transverse process. So that is the fused transverse processes of precervical vertebrae. Hypoglossal canal, so that is the hypoglossal canal, symbolizes the intervertebral foramina. The supraoccipital part, that is the squamous part, is formed by the up to the highest nuchal line, represents the lamina of the fused precervical vertebra. The area above the highest nuchal line is a separate component derived from the tectal plate of aortic capsule. So these are, otherwise this is the development of occipital bone which we have seen in detail. Special information of the occipital bone also we will see. The basilar part is separated from the condylar parts by an imaginary line. So we will see this is the basilar part and this is the condylar parts. By an imaginary line which extends across the junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3 of the occipital condyle. So you should draw one line from the occipital condyles on anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. Traced above, this line should pass us through the hypoglossal canal and bisects the jugular tubercles. That will separate the basilar part and the condylar part. The junction between the squamous part and the condylar parts is represented by the horizontal line passing through the posterior ends of the occipital condyles. So occipital bone presents 3 types of extrinsic articulation, interestingly. Fibrous or sutural joints at the peripheral margin, and basi-occiput and basi-sphenoid cartilaginous joint, and also the occipital condyles with the atlas by the synovial joint. Cartilaginous joint between this basi-occiput and basi-sphenoid, so this is the cartilaginous articulation, regulates the growth of the length of the base of the skull. And those between this jugular process and petrous temporal bone represents the regulate the growth of the width of the skull. Deep cervical fascia is attached to this bone in 2 places. Investing layer of deep cervical fascia along the superior nuchal lines and prevertebral layer on the inferior surface of the basi-occiput. Venous sinuses, so many venous sinuses are related to this bone. So in the inner surface of squamous part we have learnt in detail. So this is another special information of the occipital bone. And also so many nerves are related to the bones in the jugular foramen, or in this bone glossopharyngeal, vagus and accessory. And all in the jugular foramen are related to the jugular tubercle. Hypoglossal through the hypoglossal canal, Spinal root of accessory nerve through the foramen magnum. Greater occipital, lesser occipital nerves on each side of the external occipital protuberance. So these are the again minute details of the occipital bones. Now we will complete this occipital bone with the ossification of the occipital bone. Occipital bone is ossified from 8 centers, one for the basilar part, one for each condylar part, and 4 for the squamous part, and 1 for the posterior margin of foramen magnum. The basilar part is ossified in cartilage in the 6th week of intrauterine life. Each condylar part starts ossification in the 8th week. So this is then the squamous part below the highest nuchal line is ossified in cartilage from 2 centers, one on each side in the 7th prenatal week. Above the highest nuchal line, it is ossified in membrane from 2 bilaterally placed centers in about 8th week. There are 2 regions of squamous part unite in the 3rd month after birth. The fusion between the squamous and condylar parts take place at about the end of the 2nd year. Within 6 years, the basilar part fuses with the condylar part. So therefore, by 6th year, occipital bone forms one entity. Between the 18th and 25th years, the occipital bone is osseously connected with the body of the sphenoid bone. So this completes the ossification of the occipital bone also. So we have elaborately discussed about the occipital bone, the parts of the occipital bone, and parts of each part, and also the special information of the occipital bone and about the ossification of occipital bone. So this will help you a lot, I hope. I hope you should have understood the details. Go through the video 2 or 3 times as it is the detailed information of occipital bone. With the next skull bone, we will meet in the next class. Those who have not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe now. Keep watching the videos. Don't forget to press the like button and share button of the video. Thank you.